Hey everybody, I'm Seth. Thanks for stopping by Moose Run Farm. It's not a very spring-like day today. It's been a really windy year, and I'm getting a little tired of it, I'll be completely honest, but it is March, and March is kind of the transition month up here. As the old adage says, in like a lion, out like a lamb. So it's time to start thinking about spring projects, time to start thinking about our equipment and what we need to have fixed up for the summer and for haying this year. And I figure there's no better place to start than going through our new rake. And here it is. I see potential, don't you? So this is as best I can figure, 95 to 99, somewhere in there, KUHN GA 3200 GT. It's a gyro rake, a rotary gyro rake, and it's a manual raise and lower. The KUHN gyro style rake that runs in a circle like that, that's what I'm familiar with using. That's what I used on my uncle's dairy farm growing up, and all my haying experience is actually with that type of rake. The ones I'm used to raise and lower hydraulically, but I'm excited to just have a KUHN rotary rake. They're pretty expensive, and when I started pricing out the hay equipment, it didn't look very likely that I was going to be able to get anything close to one. And then this one came up, and so I think it's going to be great. Second reason I'm really excited about it is that it's a manual lift, it's not a hydraulic lift. And since we're going to run it on one of two different tractors, and one of those tractors is the Kubota, which requires the UDT2, the special Kubota transmission fluid, which is quite a bit different than your standard Hi-Tran fluid is. I can run it behind the Kubota or the International, and I don't have to worry about cross-contamination of the fluid. A lot of rakes in this era had just a single set of tires, so 2 tires. This one has kind of the cantilever gear type tires that have 2. One is offset from the other on each side, so 4 total. I think that for those 3 reasons, it's going to be a really great choice for us, and I'm really excited to get it fixed up and operational. Hi Briggs, you want to say hi? How you doing, buddy? How are you? It's a windy day, huh? We thought it was spring, and then today happened. A couple days it'll be warm again. So yeah, those are the reasons I'm pretty happy about this KUHN Gyro Rake GA 3200 GT, and let's see what we can get done today on it. The sick chicken is all better and is back outside, but if you thought that we were going to have a video without chickens in the background, you have not met my wife. So here are the rest of the pieces of the rake. Here are the arms, PTO shaft, wheels, 4 wheels total. As I mentioned outside, I'm really happy about that. I think that does better on rough ground. Curtain that's not in the best of shape, but that's okay. We can figure that out. This main spindle is what everything's kind of mounted on. This spindle here goes on the top of this yoke. This yoke holds the wheels. That's the cap that has a bearing that sets in it. here, this is where the drive comes in, and then there's a bearing that sets it in the bottom as well. And these two things that kind of look like a disc mower turtle, they form the carousel that the arms for the rake mount into, and it guides them around the track so that the cams can actuate as they're supposed to in sequence as they go around this guy here. In this bucket you will find a lot of parts, a lot of bearings, some nuts and bolts. Looks like a good puzzle, huh? So this is the main ring gear that sits on that central spindle and makes the rake work. It's powered by this small spur gear. It comes in off the PTO. I'll take a picture so you can see a better picture of it zoomed in. But right here, this series of teeth is very worn down and they're kind of rounded over. And I think that just with wear and with time, this guy wore down these teeth enough that it caused them to fail. If you can call it a failure. I don't really consider it a failure when this thing was built in the 90s and has performed its job very well for many, many years. But these teeth did get worn down to the point where they were no longer functional. And I think when that happened, my guess is the rake kind of crashed a little bit, and either this guide jammed up or perhaps it stopped turning, but something happened that cued them in that rake needed to be looked at. So the gentleman I bought it from took it to Town Line Equipment in Plainfield. They disassembled it and found that this part was the issue. And at that point, the gentleman I bought from, I don't think he was interested in investing in fixing it. I think he decided to upgrade the rake. And that was not because he is not mechanically inclined. From the conversations I've had with him, he's very mechanically inclined and capable, and has a nice shop, but it sounded like he was in the process of rebuilding a John Deere 730, I think he said. Classic Deere, and I think that project had a lot more intrigue to him than rebuilding an old KUHN rake. So he sold it to us for a very fair price, as basically just a pile of parts, the parts that you see here, all disassembled like this and the bolts in a box. So that's where the challenge will be for us, is I trust him that all the parts are here, and I think that everything that we need to make this a fully functional rake is sitting in this garage right now, with the exception of, obviously, this needs to be replaced. But since I wasn't present when it was taken apart, and I have never seen it in one piece, it will take a little bit of a puzzle to get everything put back together. Today what we're going to do is find out what we need to order from KUHN, because that takes a little bit. They're still based in France. We know we need to buy new ring gear. That's a $500 part. I actually spec'd it out before I bought the rake from Town Line Equipment. So I knew that was available and was a $500 part, no surprise there. This gear seems to be okay. The teeth are not rounded or damaged at all. They are all even. So I think I'm gonna leave that guy. But we need to put new bearings on it, so we'll have to press or get those off somehow. And there's a bearing in here that we need to get out with the spring clip. And then these are the two bearings that came out of the ring gear itself. A larger one, and hopefully we can find this guy too locally. He's a bit bigger, but both these bearings are pretty good. The big one especially seemed pretty good. This one has a little bit of a bump to it. But I'm going to just replace all the bearings. We're in this thing this deep, we're this committed, and I feel like it's money well spent to just put it together right. I really like the rake, and I intend to keep it for a long time. I think that even if we upgraded someday, I would keep this as a backup. So I'm gonna try my best to rebuild it right, and we're gonna put all new bearings on it as we go. So let's start taking some bearings out and see how big a turkey some of these are. So far, they've all come apart pretty easy, so let's hope for the best. One thing we're gonna do is label everything as I take it apart too, because I'll take all the help I can get figuring out how I get this guy back together. I did order a manual on eBay that allegedly is for this machine, and I'm hopeful that that works. Okay. Two rings in there. Gosh. I don't think that one's actually a ring. I think that's used to be a seal for this thing and is no longer. One. So I have a small press to put these guys back together with, but I find that a hammer and a vise does just as good for disassembly. So these guys are pretty well smoked. Definitely bumpy, and their seals are missing. So I'm glad that they probably hadn't failed yet, but they were going to, so it's good that we're doing this. Okay. Two more. The bearing collection is growing. You know, anyone who's done this before or knows more about this than I do, feel free to comment if you think I should replace this. Like, there's still flat spots on the gear teeth, and they're all even. They're not worn to a point at all. It's hard to believe that it didn't get damaged when you look at the condition of the ring gear, but I don't know. I don't know. If you have an opinion, please feel free to share. Clip's moving, so that's a good sign. Maybe it won't be too bad. Okay. So that's it. That's our 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bearings that make this thing work. Not terrible. It's got a bit of a rattle to it though. I can hear it. So we're going to replace the ring gear, all the bearings, and then this is the lower part of the rake carousel. I'm going to call it a turtle just because I can't think of a better term for it or what it should be called. But right here, I'm not sure what happened, but you can tell it's a bit distorted. And you might not be able to see it without it getting spun. But there's a bit of a bend to it here. And it looks like, I'm not sure, maybe a rock got down in there, or maybe over the years one of the rake arms got jammed in here or something. I don't know, but you can tell someone tried to heat this and knock it back into shape so it at least worked. But I'm going to end up ordering a new one of these too. So the next thing is I'm going to try and get these wheels apart, these spindles taken out, or the wheels taken off. I'd like to paint everything. I'm probably not going to use KUHN paint. I am going to order a decal kit so it looks nice when we're done, but I'm probably just going to end up using some local paint. The KUHN paint was $25 per spray can. It was like 100 and something per quart. It's just a lot of money. And honestly, from what I read online when I was researching it, not a whole lot of people really liked the KUHN paint, the name brand paint. So it's probably going to end up not quite exactly KUHN orange. It will probably end up more Kubota orange, which KUHN orange is a little more of a red tint to it, but I don't know. We'll see how close we can get. But because of that, I'd like to take these wheels off so I can paint these gear cross sections. The wheels are off and the spindles all look good. Everything came apart fine. All the wheel bearings look pretty good. They're all sealed bearings. It was obvious that he had packed them a few times at least, because they all had pretty new grease in them, and some of it was different colors, so it has definitely been done a few times before. At some point, I'll have to replace these tires, but they'll get us through this year, I think at least. So I'm just gonna leave the wheels, and when I replace the tires, I'll replace the bearings, and I'll paint the rims. All right, next thing we're gonna do is start taking these rake tines off. I'm gonna take every one off. We'll inspect the hardware. If it needs to be replaced, we'll replace it. If the tine needs to be replaced, we'll fix it as well, or weld it or whatever. And I'm not gonna label this hardware because it's pretty self-explanatory, I think. So that was a lot of work. An impact probably would have been the better tool for that than a wrench set. A lot of the hardware is mismatched, so I might end up getting some new hardware, at least so it all matches. And then some of the nuts were pretty worn too, so I might end up getting all new hardware just to avoid confusion going forward. But all the arms are separated and they're ready to be prepped and lined up, and we will paint them. And there's a pile of tines. Here's all the other parts. So that'll do it for today. Thanks for stopping by. Thanks for subscribing to Moose Run Farm. We're trying to grow the channel, so every subscription really helps us out. So thanks for doing that, and thanks for liking and sharing. And keep an eye out for part 2. This will probably be at least part 2, maybe part 3, depending on how it goes and how involved it gets. So thanks for watching today, and we'll see you on the next one. Take care, guys.